Thank you so much. Wow, that was amazing. In Pirkei Avos, we find an interesting thing. We list the 10 things that were created bein hashmashes, and one of them is a pair of tongs. Why a pair of tongs? Like, we're listing unique things like Bilam's mouth and Moshe's grape. A pair of tongs? So it says, tzvas b'tzvas asuya. You need one pair of tongs to hold the other one in the fire in order to make it, as every good blacksmith knows. The Rebbe explains that even something that's incidental to a greater purpose is still vital, and Hashem cherishes it just as much. Hechsher mitzvah is important enough to be included in the bein hashmashes. The Rebbe talks about this, and the illustration that the Rebbe uses for hechsher mitzvah is chinuch. Rabbi Taub earlier referred to a story about Reb Chia, who had a plan. He saw that children in the villages were not getting enough chinuch, were not getting enough limud haTorah. So what he did was he planted seeds. He grew flax. He reaped it. He turned it into nets for trapping deer. He fed the deer to poor people, and he used the skin to write Sifrei Torah. He gave the Sifrei Torah, one of each of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, to every 5 children. Jigsaw, anyone? And each of them became the other's teachers. For this, Reb Chia is called someone who saved the future of Klal Yisrael by preventing the Torah from being forgotten. But he could have been teaching Torah. He was a tremendous Talmud Chacham. Why did he have to go through all those steps? Hechsher mitzvah. It was necessary, it was needed, and it is just as precious. I would like to thank some very special ladies in this room who embraced the Hechsher mitzvah of Chinuch. All of you spend hours, the cutting, the pasting, the preparing, the prizes, the tests, the marks, the late night phone calls, all the things that are not a part of your 9 to 12 or 9 to 4 or 9 to midnight job. It's Hechsher mitzvah, it's Chinuch. And the women who committed to oversee this convention, the committee took upon the Hechsher mitzvah of Chinuch for the past months. They took it upon themselves to see to it that this will be a convention by Mechanchos, for Mechanchos, reflecting your needs and values, and they deserve a tremendous thank you. First of all, we would like to thank the convention chair people, Mrs. Henny Bartfield, workshops chair, Mrs. Miriam Laufer, banquet chair, she's doing a fantastic job, and Mrs. Tamara Katzman, general sessions chair. In order of age groups, I'm going to start with the little ones. It's such an incredible schos this year for the first time to be branching out in a real way into the early childhood department. Many of us as mothers value and understand the incredible role that early childhood chinuch has on our smallest little people. And Morasar Chuzen, Marachaya Light, you took it upon yourselves, and the results are beyond our wildest expectations. Thank you. And continuing on in the age groups, everyone added their touch, their chayas, their contribution. Marachani Brad, Mrs. Karachaya Epstein, Mrs. Hannah Gray, Mrs. Batya Landis, Mrs. Batsheva Sapachnik, and 2 people who had prior overseas arrangements and yet gave it their all just to benefit you sitting in this room, Mrs. Naomi Friedman and Miss Chaya Zirkind. And Mrs. Hannah Newman, Mazel Tov for your new baby. But you were in it with us in spirit. The convention would not be what it is without the masterful coordination of Baruch Cohen, I hope you're in the room, of Sovereign Planning, and Mrs. Etty Lipsch, our administrator. Their efforts truly exemplified turning Gashmias into Ruchnias, because who could absorb, who could take in everything that's being offered without the babysitting and without the wonderful nourishing meals and without every single detail, and there are so many details being arranged. And our entire MEF staff, thank you for the dedicated efforts of Rina Yudkov and Leah Karas, as well as all the presenters who invested heart and soul above and beyond the call of duty to give Mechanches what they deserve. I'd also like to mention Mrs. Sarah Rosenfeld, who's standing at her post in Melbourne, Australia, where they're in the school year, but she was so much a part and is so much a part of what this kinnis has become today, so she deserves our hakaras hatov as well. The final speaker tonight is someone who really should be thanked first, but I'd like to first reference another story in the Gemara about Rabbi Huda ben Gamla, who earned the same epithet as Rabbi Chia, that if not for him, Nishtakach Torah Yisrael, the Torah would have been forgotten. He also saw, at that time, the yeshivas were in Yerushalayim, Kimitzian Teitzei Torah, and he saw that the ones in the villages who didn't have parents who could bring them or who were too distant were not learning, were not gaining Limud HaTorah. So he made an edict that Balamdim should be sent out to all the small villages, and he started schools the way we know it. Every town has a school, every child goes to school. That didn't exist earlier. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Huda ben Gamla were not limited by what was. They saw what could be. They saw something that did not yet exist, and they made it happen. They did not only improve Chinuch in its then current form, but they created new opportunities, new structures and solutions for Chinuch to flourish. This is the approach of Rabbi Zalman Shneur, director and founder of the Menachem Education Foundation. Where others see problems, Rabbi Shneur sees possibilities. Where others see impossibilities, Rabbi Shneur sees opportunities for something new. Those of you who have been with us for a while may have noticed that the summer events we've been holding for the past 5 years have been evolving in their nomenclature. First it was a summer seminar, then a conference, then a convention, and this year also a retreat. And it isn't just the names that have been evolving and upgrading, but the vision and the scope of what takes place. And each year it was Rabbi Shneur who raised the bar, who had the vision for growth. It is with tremendous hakaras hatov for this convention and for the countless opportunities throughout the year for mechanches, schools and students to have a lighter load and greater hatzlacha in their teaching and learning that we introduce Rabbi Zalman Shneur.
Thank you. It's rare that both my mother and my wife are in the room. Shkayach for the warm introduction. "27 years ago, the same kvias as this year, Shabbos was Tesayin of, Monday, Yud Chesav, Chafav was Wednesday, Tavshin and Aleph. There was a Chinuch, a Shluchim, in Moscow, which was a wondrous thing that all of a sudden in the former Soviet Union, in Russia, in the capital city, Shluchim gathered together. That Shabbos, the Rebbe spoke about it at Farbrengen. And the Rabbi spoke about the purpose of a Chinuch, that people get together to counsel one another and give advice in great spirit of friendship and brotherhood. Ki ish echad b'lev echad, ish tzirei yazayiru. And then the Rebbe goes on and says that what's the purpose of all this is to take achlatas tovos. There should be a bechein. And then the Rebbe says, v'hi ratzin, and gives a bracha to the convention, that it should go from strength to strength, and should go mitoichei safon to Adi Yosef until a level of bli gvul, of a tremendous accomplishment. And this is the bracha that we ask for this convention, that we, in the spirit of friendship and togetherness, should also have the bracha until a bli gvul. In some ways, you can say it's also maybe not on the same macro level, but at least in the micro level, the bracha that is in this convention. Literally 9 weeks ago we decided we were going to do this. We did not have much arranged, but we were determined, and with real siyata d'shmaya did everything come together. And it's really without Hashem's brachas we would never be able to put together such an event that really I would say is one of the greatest and the largest Chinuch Chabad conventions in North America. As people have mentioned before, that it's really not one individual, but it's a group, it's a team. But I do want to mention two very special people that are not here, that without their help, the convention would not happen. And one is Mendy Smetana from the shipping center in Crown Heights. He has a printing company, and Erev Shabbos, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're like, our program guide is not printed yet, we just got it, it's all final, and he stayed up all Motzei Shabbos to print it. So this is really, there's people in our community that really are so much behind the scenes that most of us don't even know his name, but who we all benefit so greatly. The other is my dear friend Meir Hecht, who really put together the great videos that you see and you'll see soon. Without his vision and inspiration, they would not have happened, so thank you, Meir. I don't have much to say, but I just would like to touch upon a point that was said earlier. It was mentioned before our teacher Shluchim. Is it really Shluchim, not Shluchim? Rabbi Shlomo Zarchi, who's a Mashpia in 770, asked the Rebbe that question. He said, all my friends are going on Shluchas. I'm in 770, I'm a Mashpia. Am I on Shluchas? I'm right here in Crown Heights. I'm at the foot of the Rebbe's table. Am I considered to be a Shliach? And the Rebbe answered him that if you will do your work b'mesira u'nesina, with devotion and ibergegebenkeit, you are a Shliach. I grew up in a home where both of my parents are teachers. And I see that mesira u'nesina every single day. I remember as a child, maybe, I was 10, 11, we had a house full of kids. After supper, after laundry, after everything, my mother would take a glass of tea and read Rashi for the next day, for next day's class. It's 10, 11 o'clock at night. There's no greater mesira nesina than Chinuch. And, this is really the greatest shluchas. The Rebbe in the Igros today you can Google everything. If you just Google Shluchim Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all Chinuch. And the Rebbe says that Melamdim are the Shluchim of Hashem. You're doing the greatest work. There's no greater shluchas. It's interesting, my paternal grandfather, Rabbi Mordechai Shneur Alav Shalom, he was once offered to be a sandik at a bris. And the bris was scheduled during lunchtime, but as things happen, things get delayed and the time moves. So he told the Baal Simcha, the kibbud I got, now I'm going to go back to my students. And he forgo to be a sandik because of that devotion to chinuch. No other job has such dedication. And for us at the Menachem Foundation, this is why we're so determined and to do everything we can to service these most important people in our community, the teachers, the mechanches. And I will conclude with this thought. The very last Farbrengen that the Rabbi Farbrenged on Gimel Tammuz was Gimel Tammuz Tavshin Nun Aleph. And the way the sichas were printed in those years, the entire Farbrengen was just one flow of a sicha. But Gimel Tammuz was unique, because when the sicha came out during the week, it had actually two parts. It had the main sicha, and then there was a little added part that spoke about the opening of a new building in Crown Heights, the building of Yeshiva Temchet Mimim on Crown Street. And the Rebbe speaks about a building that when you build a building, it's protected from the outside. And the Rebbe says chinuch has to be so pure and so holy that it's like a building, that there's no outside influences. That's how protected it has to be. And then the Rebbe says, but every building needs to have a mica, needs to have a guardrail, that nobody should fall off. And then the Rebbe adds, but when somebody does fall off, kipol hanoifel, the Eibusher is going to come to pick them up. And when I learned the Sikha, I was wondering, it was like, this is Nun Aleph. Who's falling off the buildings of Yeshiva? Who's falling off our Chinuch system in Tafshin Nun Aleph? We're at the height of the Mashiach campaign. The Rebbe is lifting us higher and higher and higher. Who is the Neufel? And yet, if there is a Neufel, what does the Rebbe say? Because the Chinuch is so good, why do we even have a Neufel? But then Hashem will pick them up. So either is it like what's going on? Is there going to be someone falling? Is someone not falling? Why is somebody falling and why is Hashem picking them up? And I discussed this with many people, and it seems that the Rebbe is talking to our generation, that our generation, the greatest challenge is chinuch. And it's incumbent upon us that we have to build such a strong chinuch system, that when our chinuch system is so powerful, there will be no neifel. But if, chas v'shalom, there is a neifel, the Rebbe wrote to a professor in Tavshin Yudalad, Chaf Dalad Shvat Tavshin Yudalad, that when there is people, the children that go off the way of Torah and mitzvahs, only through chinuch will they be brought back. And which part of chinuch? The Morish Torah, the essence of the Torah. If we build our chinuch communities to be so powerful and so all-encompassing, then they themselves, the essence of themselves, the Mor of the chinuch, will bring our children back. And this is the message to us, that it's in our hands to make our chinuch system the strongest ever, to ensure that every single child will be together with us as we greet Mashiach b'Karev Mamish.